The July term of 2022. The State versus Richard Alexander Murdaugh, defendant. Indictment for murder, SC Code 16-3-0010, CDR Code 0116. Verdict, guilty.
The double murder case of Alex Murdaugh has gripped true crime fanatics for a while now. Murdaugh only recently received his sentence for the murders, and the case appears to finally be over almost 2 years after the deaths. Still, the story doesn't feel like it's reached a satisfactory conclusion. There is more to this tale based on what we know and what we don't know. In today's video, we're going to go over the case and some of the evidence for and against Alex Murdaugh's part in the deaths of his wife and son. Was he guilty, or was there more to this murder case? In case you're unaware of the details of this double murder case, it involves two of Alex Murdaugh's close relatives, his wife Maggie, 55, and his son Paul, 22. They died between 9 and 9:30 on June 7, 2021, outside their home via multiple gunshot wounds. Alex Murdaugh was the one to call the police and report that both were shot and killed outside their home. That report came around an hour to a half hour after the shooting. His call was frantic, saying how they were unresponsive and he could see his son's brain. As you know, as a subscriber to this channel, we wouldn't be covering this story today if this was a simple murder case. If you aren't yet subscribed, please do so you can access more content as it drops. This isn't a typical story of a husband murdering his family in a rage and finally facing justice. Instead, many different layers to this story have us scratching our heads. Why would Murdaugh use two different guns? Who sent the death threats to his son? What is the deal with the shady accomplice? What does this have to do with Stephen Smith? Let's try to get to the bottom of some of this. Let's start with the case against Alex Murdaugh, because a jury found him guilty on February 24th this year. The judge sentenced him to prison on 2 counts of murder and 2 of possession of a weapon during the commission of a violent crime. Prosecutors chose not to seek the death penalty, but instead sought life without parole. What is interesting about this case is that it took over a year for Alex Murdaugh to be charged, with official confirmation coming on July 12, 2022. It was then another 7 months for a conviction. The prosecution felt that the case against him was simple. They refuted his alibi, pointed out his laundered clothes, and stated that he killed his family to gain sympathy while facing trial for other crimes. The jury bought the idea of the false alibi via video taken by Paul Murdaugh minutes before his death. Alex's voice appears to be in the background. Another factor working against Alex Murdaugh in this double murder case was that he was facing trial for an array of other cases. The combination of charges against him led to a $7 million bond. Many of these are related to financial crimes, such as fraud, forgery, and money laundering. If found guilty of them all, he faced more than 800 consecutive years of prison time. The notion was that if he was guilty of all of this, what was a little double homicide to help make things easier? There was no sympathy for the man at all, and he had no chance of beating the accusations. The problem is that there are a lot of aspects to this crime that either don't add up or simply ask a lot more questions. Some of the evidence is questionable, and there are other crimes tied to the case to consider. We have to play devil's advocate here and dig a little deeper into this case. We want to know what was really going on beyond the shootings that night, and if there's more going on than meets the eye. To do that, we need to look at what we don't know for certain, and some factors that are maybe overlooked. Let's start with the basic evidence and alibi before looking at some of the other cases. All killers need a strong alibi, and there is that conflict between the video with Alex's voice and his own statement. Jurors say they can hear him on the video, while he says he was away visiting his mother.
Come here, Baba. Come here, Cash. Come here, Baba. Cash. Quit.
Let's say he was telling the truth. It was up to an hour until he called for help, having discovered the bodies, although he could have used that time to dispose of evidence and set up his story. That voice may have been him, but was he there in person or on a call?
911, where's your emergency?
I need the police to answer immediately. My wife and child shot badly. 2147 Moselle Road. This is Alex Murdaugh.
Then there are the murder weapons. This is where the story gets more interesting. It is weapons, plural, because reports show that the culprit killed Paul with a shotgun and Maggie with a rifle. This is strange for a lone killer. Why use two weapons unless it was an elaborate plan to fool the cops? It is possible that it was Alex and an accomplice, or that it was two other people entirely. There are no reports of weapons recovered near the scene, which suggests that Alex didn't dump a shotgun and rifle on the property or in the nearby water. This is where the case gets even more intriguing. The potential double homicide by Alex Murdaugh is scandalous enough, but there are other things to consider. We don't want to go too deep into the death of Alex's father 3 days after the deaths of Paul and Maggie. The report states natural causes, and the death seems to be merely unfortunate timing. The cases of Mallory Beach and Stephen Smith are another story. A big secondary issue surrounding this case is the alleged death threats made against Paul Murdaugh. This all stems from an incident when Paul killed a teenager named Mallory Beach, age 19, after crashing his father's boat in Beaufort County. It made the family pretty well known in the area, and Paul was awaiting trial for the felony of boating under the influence at the time of his death. It appears that someone wanted him dead because of his actions, or was at least trying to scare him. During the family appeal for information, this was a major part of the injury, with family members sure that the killer was at large. The question is whether someone really did make those threats and how they may relate to Paul's murder. Then there's the death of Stephen Smith back in 2015. At the time, police saw the 19-year-old's death as an accidental hit and run. They assumed a car struck him while he walked the road in need of gas. However, circumstances surrounding the blunt force impact and lack of vehicular damage are questionable. Smith died very close to the Murdaugh residence, and an investigation began during the double murder case. His body is due for exhumation. What is the significance here and the relation between Smith and the Murdaugh family? We have one final piece of this puzzle that doesn't quite fit into place, and that is Curtis Edward Smith. Curtis Edward Smith was indicted on a series of charges relating to other crimes allegedly committed by Alex Murdaugh. It seems they have worked together on some questionable financial dealings in the past. A bigger concern here is that Smith failed a SLED polygraph test when asked if he was at the Murdaugh residence on the night of the murders. This looks like a murder case where we won't ever know what truly happened. As the prosecutors said, the only eyewitnesses are dead. It's easy to see why they sentenced Alex Murdaugh to life without parole. He may have orchestrated this plot for sympathy and is clearly far from a saint. He may have figured out a way to carry this out with two murder weapons and minimal evidence against him. However, there are still those questions about the death threats against Paul, the relation to the murder of Stephen Smith, and the potential accomplice. There's a lot more to this case that may unravel in the future. As always, we'd love to hear your take on this story. Right now, it is case closed with Alex Murdaugh locked away for double homicide for the rest of his life. But did he do it? Do you believe the idea that he murdered them with two different guns to gain sympathy for his other trials? Or was there more to those death threats against Paul Murdaugh following the tragic boating incident? We hope you enjoyed this video. If so, don't forget to share it with others and subscribe to the channel for even more true crime content.